Today on RC Overload, we're going to show you guys some awesome upgrades for the ECX Torment. What's going on, guys? It's Matt from RC Overload and welcome back. Today we are doing a bunch of upgrades to my ECX Torment, mainly RPM upgrades. Why RPM? Because they are amazing. Absolutely amazing. They're relatively cheap, and they pretty much will last through almost anything that you can put your truck through. I personally love RPM just because of what I've done to my trucks as far as bashing goes, and I can say I have never broken an RPM control arm, hub, knuckle, anything. So I always go back to RPM, especially when I'm doing bashing style trucks, when I'm building them or I'm upgrading them. It's a plastic setup, but it's a hardened plastic that truly will not break under most circumstances. Plus, RPM also features a lifetime warranty, so if something does happen under normal use, they will replace it for you. But if you want to find out more about that, just head over to the website here or click the link in the description. But moving on, we are starting off with the back half of the ECX Torment, and we are going to be putting in some RPM control arms to start. Also, one thing I want to put out there is that with the RPM control arms, like you see here, they do feature a left and a right side symbol. L for left, R for right, so that way you know which control arm is going on what side. And for those of you that are new to the RC hobby, just so you know as far as direction goes, picture yourself in the driver's seat of the vehicle. Driver's side is left side, passenger side is right side. So that way you know now which side is left, not when you're looking at the vehicle head on, but picture yourself in the driver's seat. Driver's seat is going to be the left side, passenger is going to be the right side. Just a little tidbit of information. But let's get into installing some RPM stuff. Alright, so to start off, place the control arm into the back and put your pin in. You may need a set of pliers to get it the rest of the way. There's really not that much room, but the pliers will make it easier. The next step, you're going to be installing the screw that holds the pin in place. Still use the stock screw. It's very small, very tiny. This will help hold the pin in place when you're putting it all together. The next part, we are installing the RPM hubs. Now the hubs do feature a larger size diameter on the bearings. You will need a 5x11 bearing when installing these. Set of 4 of them, 2 for each side. Now, you'll put the pin in to hold it into the control arm, and you're going to put the little tiny screw in the front to lock the pin in place from falling out. Now, as you can see here, the 3643 Traxxas turnbuckles will work for the rear half of the vehicle. These are awesome because now you can adjust your turnbuckles, get your settings dialed right in for it, and they will mount up exactly in the same spots as before. Alright, now I didn't fully install the rear half of the truck, the turnbuckles anyways. That was because I accidentally ordered up the wrong bearing size. Now I had mentioned that you will need to install a 5x11 bearing in the rear hubs, and you'll need a total of 4 of them. So make sure you order that, because RPM always features, for the most part, on their hubs, a larger diameter bearing. And this is more for performance and longevity. Bigger bearings usually last longer than smaller bearings. So that's why they do that. But you'll see later on that I will have put in the bearings correctly, but that's pretty much it for the rear half. Not much to it, honestly. But now we're going to move ahead to the front half of the truck, where there's a little bit more involved. And just so you know, the control arms and the front knuckles get installed the same way as the rear hubs and rear control arms. There's pins that hold it in, and there's screws that screw it in. There's really not much associated with it. Okay guys, there's something I want to mention here regarding the rear hubs and using the hot racing drive shafts. I noticed a little bit of a problem here later on past this video when I was actually getting to the point of installing the wheels. After I got everything installed, the drive shafts, the rear hubs and whatnot, I tightened down the wheel and I noticed there was no movement. Everything was locked in place, which was kind of strange to me. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. So after doing some digging around and looking at things, I realized something. RPM racing and RPM and hot racing, excuse me, do not work well together. But don't worry, there is a fix. Very simple fix. Just put in a washer. That's it. When you're installing the Hot Racing's drive shaft into the RPM rear hub, okay? Hot Racing's setup is actually designed for the stock hub. Now, RPM decided to bevel their edge on the inside a little bit, more of like a support to it to increase the strength of the rear hub. So basically, all you have to do is actually add a washer into the back half of the rear hub, where the drive shaft actually goes in, not where it comes out. Where it goes in, put the washer there. I haven't done that yet. I still need to pick up the washer for it. But just so you guys know, a washer will work. I tested it with a slightly smaller washer and it works fine. Basically, the drive shaft just needs to be pushed back a little bit from rubbing on the RPM hub. It will not be a problem. It is not going to cause any issues whatsoever, okay? But just wanted to let you guys know, Hot Racing will work with the stock hub, no problem, no questions asked. If you upgrade to an RPM hub and you're using the Hot Racing steel drive shafts, you will need to put the washer in there. And I will show you guys that when I get to the video of showing you guys the wheels. I'll actually show you exactly what it is that I'm talking about here. But for those of you that are doing the upgrades now and might run into this issue, just wanted to explain it to you. Alright, so as you guys can see here, I'm installing the screws and the pins holding on the knuckles to the control arms. It's the exact same setup as what we did in the rear. Nothing changes there, it's very simple and straightforward. Next, we're going to be installing a set of Traxxas turnbuckles that'll go from the front shock tower down to the knuckle. This will allow for some awesome adjustments instead of those non-adjustable stock ones that we got on there. Plus, it's also a lot more secure than what was there before. Next, we're installing the front hubs, which will also require a set of 5x11 bearings, a total of 4, 2 per side, and we are still using the stock screws to mount those up. Next, we're installing another set of Traxxas turnbuckles. These are actually the same as what we used in the rear because it's a perfect length for the steering setup. Now, a little trick when installing these screws, pre-thread the screws first into the RPM parts, as the RPM holes are a little on the small side, but it's designed to keep the screw in there tightly. So pre-thread the holes before you mount anything up and it'll make it a lot easier. So that's pretty much it. There's really not much to installing this. Now, there is something that unfortunately I couldn't film for you guys due to the fact that I did not realize that I had filled up my memory card when I was installing all this, which is the RPM steering rack. It's an amazing steering rack. It is set up exactly the same way. It does take some assembly, but there are instructions with the RPM steering rack. You guys did see a little clip here, and I'll re-show it. As I'm installing the turnbuckles and I'm moving them, you can kind of see the new steering rack there a little bit. Again, it is very easy to install. Nothing fancy. You don't need anything extra associated with this. So that's that. I just wanted to tell you. Also, the RPM steering rack does not have a servo saver setup in it, or like a bump stop setup in it. It's completely solid. So if you want to put a servo saver on, it's going to have to be on your servo side of things. But I'm honestly not too worried about it. If anything, I will upgrade to a Metal Gear servo with a lot more torque in it, so that way it can take the beatings a little bit more. And I am still using the stock servo from when I originally got this truck. So just putting that out there. Alright guys, that's it for installing some RPM upgrades into your truck. Again, this will be a huge upgrade, not just in keeping the truck from breaking, but in the overall driving of the truck. There isn't going to be anything loose like in the stock setup. Everything's nice and tight. It's firm. You'll get a better steering response out of it and a lot more adjustment, especially with those Traxxas turnbuckles now in there. And again, you might need to make some minor adjustments on the Traxxas turnbuckles, but pretty much when you're doing any sort of build like this, adjustments are going to need to be made. Especially if you want to fine-tune how the vehicle drives, this allows you to do that now. So, if you guys have any questions about anything that I did, or you're unsure of something, feel free to ask me in the comment box below, and I will try to get back to you guys as quickly as possible. Alright, that's it. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, like usual. And I will see you guys next week, or actually, probably in a few days when I finally get this other video uploaded, when we install some T-Bone Racing front and rear bumpers on the ECX Torment. Alright guys, I'll see you next time on the next RC Overload.